So now we can come back to our board and then check off a few things. So let's check off, this is done, this is done, this is also done. Very nice. Really, really good job so far, but let's keep pushing. So let's move on to our next step, which is setting up the Stripe account. But before we do that, there's a couple things we need to take care of. So let's come back to our code and close this for now, close that. So come to our pricing page. And if you remember, in our handle purchase function, we are taking the user, so when they click on the purchase button, we're taking them to sign in first, right? But we're attaching a search param called intent is equal to purchase. So we need to handle that. So let's open our sign in component actually. And this part doesn't really matter. It's just like aesthetic, but what we care is this component, user auth form. So let's open that. So click on that and open this component, and we just need to add a few more things in here. Let's say const search params is equal to use search params from Next navigation, import that, and let's grab the content from that. So const intent is equal to search params dot get intent, because how we passed it here, right? And just before we call the sign in Google, let's do const callback URL is equal to, so if the intent is equal to purchase, then we're gonna take the user to slash upgrade page. Wait, we don't have that yet. Don't worry, we're gonna create that. And otherwise, we're gonna take them to slash editor. And inside the sign in function, let's add callback URL. There we go. That's all we need to do here. But because we're using use search params, so this hook is a client component hook that can trigger suspense behavior, we need to come to its parent component and wrap our user auth form with a suspense. So let's add that. So suspense from React, and then fallback, we can just give it a very basic like div. We can just say loading, doesn't matter, slash div, and wrap that around. Good. So now that we can tell if the user is actually coming from the pricing page and they clicked on this exact button, because now the sign in page is going to make a decision and then take the user to either the upgrade page or the editor page. So let's just focus in on building out our upgrade page now and then worry about the editor page later. So let's come to our source and app and then create a new folder and call it upgrade. And you know what to do, create a new page.js file. And in here, let's do async function page. So we're going to take advantage of the server component nature of Next.js here. And then let's open that and let's say const session is equal to await get auth session. And by the way, this again is part of the pre-installed components. And now we don't want that. We want the import get auth session from, yeah, like that. And then we can say if there's no user found, so if no session.user.id, we're just gonna take them back to the sign in page. So slash sign in question mark intent is equal to purchase. And that's a equal sign here. And otherwise, let's just do const URL is equal to await create checkout session. We don't have this yet. We're going to create that. But what we need to pass to this function is first the user email, and it's going to come from session.user.email. And then the user ID, which is going to come from session.user.id. And if the URL exists, we're going to redirect the user to that URL. And don't forget to export default page there. Good. Now we need to create this function. So let's, still under the same folder, upgrade, let's create a new file and then call it actions.js. Just Just so you can see better, let's put a side by side here. And in here, let's say export const create checkout session is equal to async. So it's going to be async function. And we are receiving these two, right? User email, user ID. So let's say user email and user ID, and open that. Let's say step 1 is we need to retrieve the user information. So let's say const user is equal to await prisma. Let's import that prisma.user.find unique, where what's the condition? The email is equal to user email, because email is unique, so we can use that. And don't forget, we need to add use server at the top here. And if user doesn't exist, let's just quickly throw a new error that says user not found, just as a safety measure. And then step 2, let's make a comment here. We want to check for the existing order and see if this user already has an order. And let's say let order is equal to await prisma.order.find first, where the user ID is equal to this user ID, and see if we can find this order. And if there's no such order, then we can move on to step 3, which is create an order if it doesn't exist. So let's say order is equal to await prisma.order.create data. We're going to pass user ID. It's going to be user ID. Actually, we can just shorthand it, user ID. And then the amount is going to be, and by the way, this should be user ID, lowercase d. And the amount is going to be, so I like to put it in our under lib folder. I like to create a file and then call it products.js and just put like any of the constant here. So export const product price is equal to $9.99. Okay, and close that. And we'll say product price and import that from the utils/products. Okay, let's move on to step 4 now. So after this step, you just add a space here. Step 4. We're going to say create a Stripe checkout session. And let's say const session params is equal to, let's open that. And let's say payment method types and open an array. For me, I just put card here. You can add more if you want. And also I think it depends on which country you're in, yada yada, but definitely you can add more. And then under line items, we're going to open an array and then open an object that says price is equal to process.env.stripe price, and we don't have that yet, so let's just quickly add that in case we forget later. So open our env file, and we need a stripe price ID here, and we're gonna grab that in our Stripe dashboard. So I'm gonna close that for now. So okay, price is gonna be this one, and then quantity is just 1, and below the line items we can say mode is going to be payment mode actually. And for the success URL, we're going to open a template string, and let's do process.env.next public base URL. Remember, we have that. I should just keep it open here. Yeah, we have the next public base URL. Because we're in local development now, this is localhost 3000, but after we deploy it, we're gonna need to change that to our deployed URL. But for now, we can just keep it as localhost 3000. Then the success URL, we're gonna say slash outside, so slash editor, and then question mark. Oops, why is it capitalized? So editor, and then attach a search param to it. So session ID is going to be So equal to this checkout session ID and another param that says success equals true. And for the cancel URL, so say the user clicked on the button and they sign in, and then they are being directed to the checkout page and they decided not to pay, and then they hit the go back button. They're gonna be taken back to the, so same thing here, process.env.pub next public base URL and then slash pricing. So just go back to the pricing page. And below that, let's say metadata, and in here, let's say user ID is going to be user ID, and the order ID is going to be order.id. And below metadata, let's say customer email is going to be user email, and payment intent data, and here we'll say receipt. Gotta make sure everything is spelled correctly. It's so easy to make a mistake if you're typing it by hand. Receipt email, user email as well. And then we can just come out and then say const session is equal to await stripe, and we can import that from /lib/stripe we have. So again, this file is pre-installed, and let's take a look at this file. It's just an instantiation of the stripe. So it's under lib folder, and then let's open that. And actually, because it's been a while, let me actually update this. So 2025-01-27. There you go. Okay, we can close that. And let's come back here, and then let's say stripe.checkout.sessions.create, and then let's pass the session param we created here, so session params. And let me just close the sidebar to give a little bit more space. And below that, let's say step 5. So step 5 is going to be update the order with the Stripe session ID. We can say await prisma.order.update. We can say where the ID is equal to order.id. And what do we want to update? The data is going to be Stripe session ID, session.id. And finally, we can return the session URL for redirection. So again, if you take a look at our upgrade page here, after we do all of those stuff, we will get an URL. And if the URL does exist, we're going to take the user to that URL. So here we'll say return the URL, and then the URL is going to be session.url. Let me just quickly double check everything, make sure the spelling is correct, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, folks, welcome back. Now let's just get started with setting up our Stripe account. And I'll assume that you have completed these registration process and you are staring at the same dashboard as I am right now. So we zoom in a little bit. And the first thing we want to do is to come to the search bar and let's say product, and we want to choose the second one, create a product, and you can call it whatever you want. Let's say premium product, and you can also upload an image, so this will show if you've ever seen one of those Stripe checkout page, it's like on the left hand side, right? You can show your product image and a little bit description. It's optional, so you can add them if you want. I'm gonna leave it blank for now. And let's come down to the price information. For the price model, we can just leave it as standard pricing. And the price, I'm just gonna set it to $9.99 as we defined earlier. And this is gonna be a one-time payment, not recurring. And see if there's anything else we need. No, those are optional, so we're good to go. So let's save the product. And by the way, we're in test mode right now. And if you remember, we need to grab the Stripe price ID that we put in our M file earlier, right? We don't have that yet. So if you take a look at our M file, we need a couple things. We need the secret key and the webhook secret as well as the price ID. So now that we've created the product, we can just grab the price ID, which is this one. What is this? I don't need it. And we need to grab the price ID, which is this one right here. So we can just copy. It's a little bit hard to just copy this part, so I'm just going to copy this. Okay, and then come back to our end file and just paste it here, but without the quotes. And next we need the secret key, so let's come back here and we can just collapse this. Come to our home page, API key. So developers API key, let's click on that. And we can just copy the secret key here. So copy that and paste it in here. So all we have left is the webhook secret. And I've actually put the instruction for you here that says to get local Stripe webhook secret, run the following command in your terminal. So let's do that. And in order to run this command, you need to install Stripe CLI. If you don't have that, you can just simply go to Google and search Stripe CLI install, and then just click on the first result and just copy this command and then open your terminal, run that, and you'll be able to use this command. So I've already done that, so let me come back here and open my terminal. Let's say Stripe login. So let's log in first. So I'm going to press enter to open the browser. It's trying to authenticate me. Okay, let me just do that real quick. Okay, and then it says verify the pairing code. Let me double check. It says your pairing code is leads, but okay, so that checks out. And I'm gonna say allowed access. So I can close this window now and come back to our terminal. And let's say Stripe listen -- forward to, and it's trying to autocomplete for me. So I'm just gonna hit enter for that one. And if you haven't seen that file yet, let me just quickly show you. Under our source app and webhooks, I've put a route.js file for you. Basically, I just wrote this file so you don't have to worry about the webhook API endpoint. Basically, in here, it gets the raw body to make sure it's from Stripe, and then it gets the Stripe signature. So we're gonna check if a checkout has been completed, and if so, we're gonna get the metadata from the session, update our database, and then return a response. So let's continue where we were doing, which is trying to grab the key. Okay, so let me hit enter. And it says you're using API version, this one, which we just updated, but let me just double check if it's correct. Yes, 2025, January 25. Okay, that's good. And the secret key is this one. So let's just copy that and then put it here. Awesome. Right here, I just want to quickly give you a heads up. After you deploy your app, let's say to Vercel, you need to come back to your Stripe dashboard. And first of all, of course, you need to switch from test mode to live mode, and you need to swap out all of your keys. Like this is a test key, as you can see indicated by the test in front. So after you switch to live mode, it's going to give you a new secret key, and the price ID that you created while you're in test mode is going to be gone. So you need to, again, create a new product, grab the price ID attached to the product. Also, you need to come here and search webhook, and then just say create an event destination. So they changed the name, seems like used to be called webhook, but anyways, you need to come here, right, and then search checkout. Yeah, and then just check this one, checkout.session.completed, and then hit continue, and then hit continue again. But here you're gonna be putting https / whatever your actual URL, right? Maybe it's a .com / API / webhooks, right? Take a look again at our file structure. So it's under app, under API, under webhooks. So just to match that exactly, right? So don't forget this step. But for now, because we're using localhost, we don't need to do this. We can just close off this for now and come back to our code. And before we give it a try to see if the Stripe is actually working, there's just one more thing we need to do. So let's open our auth.js file and come to line 113 where the redirect callback function is. And let's just add something here. So under the console log, let's say if url.includes / upgrade, and we're gonna say return, and then template string base URL / upgrade. And just to jog your memory, remember what we did in our user auth form. In here, we said if the callback URL has this, we're going to take the user to /upgrade. If I come from pricing, which is right here, right? If I come from pricing, I click here, it's going to take me to sign in, but remember with that search param that says intent equals purchase, so it's going to take me to /upgrade. So this is why we need to add this line here. Alrighty, let's finally give it a try. So let's come back to our pricing page and click on this button, and it's asking me to sign in. Okay, I'm going to click on that, and if everything works out, we should be taken to the Stripe checkout page. So fingers crossed. And would you look at that? How cool is that? So I'm actually not going to enter anything just yet because we haven't really fleshed out the editor page. So I'm gonna hit go back button, and it should take me to the pricing page, which you did, nice. And I'm just gonna sign out for now. Good. So let's come back to our code, and let's flesh out our editors page. So we can close this file, close that one, that can go. So actually we don't have the editor folder yet, don't we? Let's create that then. So under source, under app, let's create a new folder and then call it editor. And you know the drill, let's just create a page.js file. And again, here, it's gonna be a server-side component. So let's just say async function page. And we're gonna receive a prop called search params. Let's open that function. And don't forget to export default page here. And let's say const session is equal to await. So same thing there, get auth session. Then we can do the same thing here to say if there's no user, so if no session.user.id, we'll just kick them out and then say return redirect /sign-in. Otherwise, let's say const success. Let's grab the success and then session ID from our search params. Remember in our upgrade actions.js file, we have set up something here called success URL. So after a user successfully paid, so he's going to be directed to this route, right, editor, with two search params attached to it, session ID and success. That's where this is coming from. Okay, and then after that, let's say return. We're going to return something here, and let's say max. Oops, what the hell is that? Max with wrapper, and give it a class name of margin bottom 12, margin top 8. That's it. That's it. That's all we need. And in here, let's say if we have success and session ID, then we want to render something called payment success modal. And we're going to pass down user ID to it. So the user ID is going to be session.user.id. And otherwise, just null. Obviously, we don't have this component yet. Let's create that. So come to our components folder and then create a new file and call it paymentsuccessmodal.js file. And let's just do RFC to create a skeleton. And this is actually going to be a client-side component. So let's say use client. And basically in this component, we're going to do a few things. First, we're going to show a modal telling user that, oh, we are actually upgrading your account. Please wait. It's going to take a moment. And as soon as that's completed, we'll say something like, congratulations, it's been upgraded, and we need to ask the user to pick a unique name for their page, right? Because the next step is to take them to the actual editor so that they can customize the page. But just before that, we need to ask them to choose a unique name. Remember in our schema, just to jog your memory a little bit, here we have a slug, right? First, let's set a state called is open. Set is open. So that's for the modal. And let's say use state. And by default, it's actually going to be true. And below this, we're actually going to utilize something called 10-stack query, aka React query. So let's do const, open that, and let's say use query, and import that from 10-stack React query, and open that. And let's say query key is going to be an array, and I'll name it user plan. You can call it whatever you want. And the query function is going to be an async function. And let's open that. I'll say const data. And we're going to call our endpoint. So let's say await axials, import axials dot get. And we want to get from /API/user plan endpoint. We don't have that yet. We will create that in a bit. And also we need to attach something. So params user ID, which is the prop that we passed it down to this component. So let's receive that. So let's receive user ID. Just so we don't forget, let's come to our app under API. Let's create a new folder and then call it user plan. Create a new file under that called route.js. It has to be exactly named route.js, and we can leave it empty for now. Don't worry about that. Let's finish off our this use query here. And we can say, after that, just return the data. And then for the refresh interval, basically how often you want to query this. So let's say query, and then return query.state.data, optional, .is paid. So if this whole thing turns out to be true, then we can say false. You can stop polling, but otherwise do at every 1000 milliseconds or every second. Okay, and now we can just say we want to get the data and is pending. So use that as a loading state later. Below this function, let's say const is payment successful is equal to data, optional, is paid. All right, so let's construct our the look of it, right? So let's get rid of that and open a modal. And this modal needs to receive a few things. The first one is going to be show modal, and then we will pass is open state to it. And set show modal naturally is going to be set is open. Okay, and then give it a class name of padding x6, padding top 6, and then prevent default close is going to be equal to not is payment successful. So basically, if it's not paid yet, don't close that. And then inside, let's open a new div with a class name of flex column items center. And in here, we can say if the query is still pending or the payment is not successful, is payment successful is not true. If that's the case, we want to show this. And if not, just so it stops complaining, we want to show something else. We can just put a empty React fragment here. And inside, let's say open a new div with a class name of flex column item center justify center height 64. And in here, we'll add an icon loader2 from Lucid, and let's say class name size 4, margin bottom 4, animate spin. And close that, and below that, let's open a p tag that says upgrading your account Actually just 2 C's. Then give it a class name of text large /7, font medium, text gray 900. And below this p tag, let's add another p tag that says please wait while we process your upgrade. This may take a moment. And let's give this p tag a class name of text small/6, text center, text gray 600, margin top 2. And for the other scenario, right, let's come down here and let's say div with a class name of margin top 6, flex column, item center gap 1, text center. And inside, let's give it a p tag that says upgrade successful with emoji. Let me see if we can find the emoji. Yeah, the celebrating emoji. And give this p tag a class name of text extra large /7, font bold, tracking tight, text pretty. And below this div, let's open a form. So inside this form, we're going to ask the user to choose a unique name for their love page. So let's say we can get rid of this action for now. And we'll say div with a class name of flex column, gap 2. And in here, let's say label, and the label is going to be choose a unique name for your page. And let's give it a class name of text small, text gray 900, and then text center. Below this label, let's add an input field. So for this input, let's just import from our UI, and it's going to be a self-closing component. And let's say autofocus is going to be true. The placeholder will say, for example, Jenny, just to hint the user what to put here, and give it a class name of with full placeholder text gray 400. And well, we need to track what user typed in here, right? So let's come up here. So we're gonna use something called React hook form. Let's say const, I'll say use form, and import that from React hook form. And open that and say default values is just gonna be slug and then empty string for the default value. And we wanna grab the register, the handle submit, the form state, and let's come back to our input field, and we'll say ... register slug, because we called it slug, and say required. And in here, let's say required, the value is going to be true, and the message, so basically what we're doing is just client-side validation. Let's say name is required. We also don't want a user to type anything, right? We just want letters. So let's say pattern, and then give it a value of, so let's do a regex here. So open slash, 2 slashes, and inside let's say caret, and open bracket, lowercase a dash z, uppercase a dash z, and closing bracket plus, and then $sign. So basically we're just setting the rules for this input field that, okay, you can only enter letters, lowercase or uppercase, and you cannot enter numbers or spaces or any special characters. That's all. And let's add a message that says only letters are allowed. For the minimum length, let's say value is gonna be 3, so at least 3 characters, and the message is just gonna be name must be at least 3 characters. Of course, maximum length, let's just arbitrarily give it a 20. It's up to you. And then the message, let's say name must be less than 20 characters. And just below this input field, we'll say errors dot slug. If we have an error, then so if any of these happened, we'll just render a p tag that says errors dot slug dot message, and let's give this p tag a class name of text red 500 because it's a warning, and then text small, and below that let's open another p tag with a class name of text extra small, text gray 500, 500, and we'll say your page will be available at, and for me, I put, can you go out with .me/name, and for you, it's going to be whatever your domain name is here. And below this p tag, let's add a button. So import the button from UI, and all we need is a check icon from Lucid, and give it a class name of size for margin right 2, and a start creating text. And let's style this button. Let's say class name is equal to height 12, width full, margin top 6, and the type is gonna be type is gonna be submit, and because we're still in form, right? So type submit, and let's come up to the form opening tag, and let's say on submit is gonna be equal to handle submit, the handle submit from our, where was it? Handle submit from use form. So let's say handle submit on submit. We're gonna create that, and then give it a class, and give it a class name of margin top 6. So let's create this on submit function. Let's come up here and let's say const on submit is equal to data, and open that. Let's say const payload is equal to, we want the slug, so data dot slug, and after that we want to call a function called create love page. We're going to create that function, so payload, and we're going to pass the payload to this function. Again, we're going to use 10-step query, but this time we're going to call use mutation. So let's say const use mutation, and import that. For the mutation function, we'll say async, and we're going to do const data is equal to await axials dot post. So this is a post action, and we'll say slash API slash love page. So this is how I call it. You can call it whatever you want. So slash create, and we're gonna pass the user ID and slug. And in here we need to don't forget the slug here. And for the mutate, we're just gonna call it create love page. Whenever we hit this button right here, we hit the button, because it's a type submit and inside a form, it's gonna trigger this on submit, handle submit, on submit, right? So it's gonna come here, grab the payload, call this function create love page, and it's gonna come in here, trigger this mutate function. So let's say return data, and while we are here, let's just add the is pending, but we can rename it to is creating love page because we already have an is pending here. So to avoid conflict, let's just call it is creating love page. And in here, let's say on success, we want to do something, right? We want to say, let's just first add a toast. So I actually don't remember how I wrote the other one. Let me quickly search that. So toast dot let me see, toast dot success. Okay, so first import that. So let me import toast. Where am I? Here. So import that, and then okay, just do that. All right, got it. So let's come back here, and let's say, and we just need to change the text, right? So let's say page created, and I like to add this check. Then for the description, I'm just gonna say redirecting to editor. Well, we need to actually redirect them, right? So let's say router, and we need to add this here. So const router is equal to use router, import that, and come down here, and let's say router dot push. We want to push the user to slash editor slash data dot slug. A lot has happened, but just so we don't forget, let's quickly create those files, even though they're empty, just so we remember to create those endpoints later, right? So we have an API love page here, so let's come to our API folder and create a new folder and call it love page. And because I called it create, so I need to create a new folder, call it create. And of course, we need to create the route.js file. And you can just leave it empty for now. Because we're pushing our user to /editor/, so this is going to be a dynamic route, right? So what do we do in Next.js when we need a dynamic route? Well, we just need to come here under editor folder and then create a new folder and then give it a square bracket and call it slug. That's all you need to do. Of course, we also need the page.js. I just put an empty stuff here and then leave it for now. All right, so I think we're pretty much done with this component. Let me just double check. So all we have to do is to attach the pending state to our button because we have this is pending here, right? So this is called is creating love page. So let's come back to our button and we'll say the disabled state is going to be true when we are pending. So when it's being created, we don't want a user to click the button. The is loading state is going to be equal to the same thing. That's all we need to do for this component. Really, really good job. I know that's a lot, but we're getting really close to the point we can start building out our actual editor. Don't forget to take a break, stay hydrated. I'm gonna take a quick break and come back. Yeah, I hope you took a water break like I did. So let's continue on building our route. So remember, we have this user plan where it's checking if the user actually paid or not, right? So let's finish doing that. So let's open our route.js under user plan and let's say export async function get, and let's open that and let's say let's open a try catch block, and in our try let's say const search params is equal to new URL request.url. So grab the search params from the URL. Let me open that side by side so you can see better. So let me open this and you focus on looking at here for now. We're passing the params, user ID, blah, blah, blah. So const user ID is equal to search params, dot get user ID. And then let's say const user is equal to await prisma import prisma dot user dot find unique. So let's first find this user where the condition is what? The ID has to be user ID, and include, we just want to see the order. So let's say include order is true, and after that we can say const is paid is equal to user dot order dot is paid, right? So what it does is just firstly it checks if the user exists, and then it checks if the order exists, and then it will get the is paid. Actually, I just realized that I had a typo here. It will get is paid value from the order. Finally, it's just going to convert whatever this value is from like this expression to a boolean. So the result is going to be true if the user has an order and it's marked as paid, and it's going to be false if the user doesn't exist, or the user doesn't have an order, or the order exists but it's not paid, right? So it's just like a syntactic sugar here. And after that, let's say return response is response.json, and we want to return the is paid value back to our front end. And inside the catch, we'll just say console.error, and then error fetching user plan. Jesus, it's getting late, so bear with me. And error return response.json error, we'll say internal server error, and the status will be 500. There you go. All right, let's give that a test drive, shall we? So let's come back to our pricing page. And let's just go through that again. But this time, if everything works, we should be able to see that payment success model. So let me click on create and just finger crossed everything works out. And if it doesn't, we'll figure it out. Okay, so far so good. So let's enter our card information. So I'm going to do 42, 42, 40, 40, 40, 40, 42, just a bunch of 42s. 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the way, you can use this 4040 as your test whatever again. And I'll click on pay. Let me quickly import that. Hopefully you did. Hopefully you did. So where was that? Here. Let's import that and come back again. See what happens. Did I not install this? Well, let's just install that. I hope you don't get this, but if you do, we can just, yeah, let's try install that. So let's come back here and cut that. Let's just do npm install, but without the quote. All right, let's turn it back on again and check out again. What's going on here? Aha, now we see upgrading your account. Please wait while we process. And it says upgrade successful. Amazing. This is exactly what we expect to see. Now, our next step is just going to be finishing off that love page creation endpoint. And then we can just move on to create our editor. And by the way, it says React does not recognize the isLoading prop. So that isLoading prop is, I put it on our button, right? So if it's complaining, let's just remove that. We don't need it. Let's remove so it's inside payment success model component and it's in our button. So yeah, just get rid of this line. We don't need it. And it should solve this issue. There we go. Problem solved.